Good afternoon. My name is Cash Bailey. I'm here to present the Stacy Young project. This work is part of my senior design course, guided by Dr. Tariq Tashtoush here at TAMIU. Why is this work important? I named this project after my cousin, who was taken from us in 1999. The reason is domestic violence, for which the problem at hand has an overlapping theme. Over the past couple of years, Bluetooth trackers like Apple AirTags have become extremely popular for finding lost keys, wallets, and other items. However, these same trackers are also being misused. We've seen news reports of people finding AirTags hidden on their cars, in their bags, and other personal items. The purpose? For unauthorized surveillance. In my project, I developed a 3-axis gimbaled robot, a device that can rotate in yaw, pitch, and roll, and mounted a directional antenna on it to locate hidden AirTags on a stationary vehicle systematically. I incorporated a ternary search algorithm to scan angles more efficiently than naive methods. By the end of this presentation, I hope to show how I approached, By the end of this presentation, I hope to show how this approach offers more thorough way to locate unauthorized trackers. We'll discuss how Apple AirTags became so widespread and why their misuse has raised serious privacy concerns, including real human impacts, police reports, and prior academic studies on angle of arrival detection. We'll define the key technological challenges that existing solutions haven't solved, and why 3-axis gimbaled robot is relevant. I'll explain the hardware design, yaw, pitch, and roll, plus the power and communication aspects. I'll introduce how I scan the environment with a Yagi antenna using ternary search. We'll see data comparing naive scanning versus a ternary search, plus real-world issues like multipath reflection. We'll discuss practical hardware hurdles from motor shaft alignment to battery power distribution, along with approximate bill of materials. We'll go over future endeavors such as potentially using deep reinforcement learning. I'll summarize the main key takeaways on how to address privacy and safety. Lastly, I'll reference key scholarly works and highlight any supporting organizations and grants. Bluetooth trackers, particularly Apple's AirTags, are everywhere. They're small, affordable, and they leverage Apple's massive Find My network to track items with impressive accuracy. But there is a dark side. People have reported finding these trackers hidden on their cars, purses, coats, often placed by someone else to track them without consent. Despite Apple's attempts, like adding an occasional beeping sound or phone notification, these alerts can be delayed. Worse, if the AirTag speaker is disabled, that beep will never happen. Many Android users must install a separate app for notifications, which can be overlooked. In short, current detection methods are patchy. Smartphone apps require manual scanning or happen passively with possible delays. There's also the risk of missing subtle signals if the user doesn't systematically scan all vantage points. Evidence of Apple AirTags misuse is piling up. A study shows about 150 related police reports in an 8-month span involving everything from suspected stalkers to potential vehicle thefts. In roughly 50 cases, women specifically reported getting traffic notifications. In 25 of these, the suspect was someone they already knew or had contact with. The reason these devices are so commonly misused is that they're low cost, small. It's trivial to hide it in a car's wheel well, behind a bumper, or under a seat. Victims often find out hours or even days later, if at all. Privacy and safety are at stake here. We can't rely entirely on built-in phone alerts or signal beeps from the tracker. Realistically, we need more accurate strategy that lets users sweep their surroundings and see if any suspicious signals appear. That's where a dedicated scanning system, like the one I built, can help fill the gap. With that in mind, I can define the exact problem I set out to solve and why prior solutions have fallen short. This is what you would see if an iPhone detected an AirTag following it. These are the features provided to the owner of the AirTag, allowing them to detect, to direction find using the ultra-wideband technology. If this was accessible to the victims, then there would be no need for my research. The problem we face is that unauthorized trackers exist in large numbers, and existing detection tools aren't covering all angles or might be too slow to find a hidden AirTag promptly. Some prior research used signal strength using an app on a cell phone, but later we'll see that the signal strength, RSSI, does not behave linearly. So this makes it more difficult to locate Bluetooth trackers solely based on RSSI from an omnidirectional antenna. My goals are higher accuracy and better efficiency. I want to angle the antenna with enough resolution to identify the strongest RSSI angle within a few degrees. In regards to better efficiency, if I took 181 measurements from negative 90 degrees to positive 90 degrees, that is time consuming. A more intelligent algorithm can reduce scanning steps. Hence, I asked two main questions. Does a 3-axis approach, where I can systematically sweep in yaw, pitch, and roll, actually lead to fewer missed trackers? And is a ternary search truly more efficient than a naive linear approach, especially given multipath interference? My robot is modular at every step, yaw, pitch, and roll, which I have called the base, the tilt bracket, and the barrel, respectively. Each axis runs on its own servo, plus an ESP32 board and a separate battery pack. This eliminates the need for slip rings or complicated wiring harnesses. Mounted in the barrel, the Yagi antenna is mounted in the barrel so I could pivot it independently. Yagi antennas are directional, giving us a clear peak in strength when pointed directly at the AirTag. In a perfect world, the greater offset from the signal source and the antenna's direction, the weaker the signal. Because each axis is powered on its own, I avoided fouling wires. Communication is handled with ESP now, which is a peer-to-peer Wi-Fi communication protocol. Then I can control the system via a ROS2 on a laptop. Yaw, pitch, and roll each can rotate from about negative 90 degrees to positive 90 degrees for scanning different planes around the robot, with the 0 degrees being its home position. This design aims to systematically cover every angle in a more automated way than someone standing there turning an antenna by hand. Let's see how we can do that with scanning more efficiently. Here we see the form factor of my design. Here the base controls yaw. The tilt bracket here controls pitch, and within the barrel controls the roll of the antenna, of its end effector. And then we also have 2 laser diodes so that we can see where the antenna is actually pointing. Here we can see the architecture of the system. Along with the 3 main parts of the robot, there's puck, which is this thing right here, which has 2 ESPs, 32s, one for Bluetooth scanning and the other one for Wi-Fi communication. Then there's their bridge that you can see right there on my laptop right here, that little beige box is the bridge. Then there's the bridge, which is a single ESP32 that is connected via USB to the laptop. The bridge acts as a relay. All comms go through the bridge and go to and from the laptop and the respective modules. The laptop controls everything via ROS2. At the heart of my approach is the ternary search algorithm. Rather than stepping through each angle from -90 degrees to 90 degrees, we do the following. We divide it into 3 equal segments and measure the RSSI at the thirds, at the center, at the first third, and the center of the last third. So here are the partitions of the thirds, and here are the centers of the first third and the third third, respectively. The reds being right here, the partitions to the thirds, the greens being where the antenna will be scanning. We look at those 2 measurement values and discard the segment with the lower RSSI. This narrows our search to a higher signal portion. We keep subdividing and discarding the 1/3 at a time until the centers of those sections are within 1 degree. At this point, we've effectively found the best angle. Why does this help? A linear sweep might need 181 steps. A ternary search can cover in about 14. A big improvement from the linear to log of n. In some orientations, such as scanning it from the rear or front, we saw an 8% fewer steps. From scanning it on the side of the car, on either side of the car, we saw closer to 65% fewer. Partly because we skipped the empty space outside of the typical vehicle dimensions. Here we have an average parking space. So I went out to the parking lot and I just measured one of the parking spaces to see what the dimensions would be. And they were approximately 80 by 20 feet, giving me the idea that a normal vehicle is going to lie within those dimensions. So we also found that 127 degrees coverage is practical on the sides and 78 degrees for the front or rear. In practice, this algorithm helps reduce unnecessary angles, saving time and battery. Here we have a demonstration. Notice how the robot is closing in on the AirTag posed at the center of the top of the black sawhorse. So this right here is the AirTag. It's super small, but the whole idea is that this is going to eventually point at the AirTag. I test the robot in 2 main scenarios: open space with line of sight being one of them, and a test on a vehicle. With the open space with the line of sight, I'm placing the robot in an obstructed area. I scan from -90 to 90 degrees via ternary search. The system consistently covered about after 14 iterations, landing within the 5 degrees of the AirTag's actual bearing. Since line of sight was clear, this result matched my expectations. The vehicle test, here the robot was centered at the side of the vehicle, roughly 10 feet away. Multipath reflections from the metal body made the strongest RSSI angle misleading. I'm hopeful that bringing the robot closer or introducing an adjustable attenuator could help mitigate these reflections in future trials. Additionally, investigation is needed to confirm how to best address multipath in a single scan. Overall, line of sight performed well, while the vehicle scenario underscored multipath can derail accurate detection. Despite that, a 3-axis gimbal with ternary search still beats the reliance on naive sweeps. Here we see what would be preferred in a perfect world scenario with an AirTag positioned at 0 degree mark. This shows multiple readings of an RSSI at one angle. Here we see how much RSSI values can jump. This is why I take multiple readings, average them out, and apply a standard deviation to get an adjusted value. The right number of samples needed per angle is somewhere between 4 and 15 samples to get an accurate reading for that angle. This adds additional time to the scanning. Testing for that magic number is still underway. Here we see data I collected manually. I printed out a protractor, taped it to the table, and placed the AirTag at the 0 degree mark approximately 3 meters away from the antenna. At 5 degree intervals, collecting 30 seconds of data per interval. Here we see the adjusted values at the respective angles. I ran this data collection 3 times. The 3 lines represent the orientations I placed the AirTag in. I had it parallel to the ground. I had it vertical radial, and then vertical facial towards the antenna. This shows the validity of using the Yagi antenna accurately, finding the signal source within 5 degrees. If we could remember that we only need approximately 127 degrees for the side and 78 degrees for the front or rear scan, we can see how much unneeded data is not necessary and allows for more ease in using the ternary search algorithm. Before implementing the algorithm, I simulated it using the manually collected data, and it was able to hone in onto the signal source within 14 iterations. Building a functional gimbal is never as easy as it looks on paper. Here are some lessons I've learned. I initially tried stepper motors, but found them underpowered, allowing the yaw bearing to bind. I switched to servos, which gave me simpler PWM control. However, alignments between servo horns and brackets were crucial. Any slight misalignment would reduce the scanning accuracy and cause shaking motion. Also, because each axis had its own mass distribution, I had to balance them carefully. I included IMUs on each axis for closed loop feedback, but found calibration drifts. If the environment or servo vibrations changed, the IMU might lose calibration quickly. I considered adding encoders for more stable angle feedback, or simply relying on known servo angles if I trusted mechanical position. Each axis has its own battery. That's great because there's no wiring harnesses across rotating joints. But this also means more batteries to charge and track. It's a trade-off. Mechanical simplicity versus more battery management. The final cost is about $350 per robot, including the servo motors, the ESP32s for each axis, a Yagi antenna, and the rest of the materials, batteries, wiring, 3D printed parts, etc. It's not cheap, but it's within reason for a prototype that can systematically locate a hidden tracker. Looking ahead, I have several future steps in mind. Right now, I do a certain number of steps in each ternary search. I can tune how quickly I jump angles or how many times I sampled RSSI before deciding. Probably I do a coarse search first, then refine around the peak. I want to refine the balance between scanning speed and reliability. If I deploy 2 or more of these robots around the vehicle, I can triangulate signals. Each unit determines its strongest angle, and the intersection of those bearings can yield an actual 3D location. That would be extremely helpful in a parking lot scenario. Instead of purely algorithmic approach, I might try deep reinforcement learning, where the system adaptively selects angles based on real-time feedback. This might handle multi-path reflections more gracefully. learning to disregard suspicious outliers. In the future, I could incorporate stronger stepper motors for improved accuracy by adding encoders. Overall, these improvements could make a robot even more robust, especially in a tricky real world condition with lots of reflections. Using a 3-axis gimbaled robot with a directional Yagi antenna, I systematically scan angles via ternary search, cutting potential steps from about 181 down to 14. In certain orientations, like the side, I could save up to 65% of steps over naive scanning, with the front or rear being 8% fewer. And this is aided by skipping the empty space outside of the 8-foot by 20-foot parking footprint. Although multipath reflection is approximately 10 feet, yielded incorrect bearing near the vehicle, I'm hopeful that moving the robot closer and adding an attenuator, an adjustable attenuator, can help mitigate those effects. Ultimately, my goal is to protect individuals from unauthorized trackers by providing a more thorough, methodical localization process. Here are my references. I would like to acknowledge the United States Department of Education, and I would also like to acknowledge my wife's contributions, who has not only provided me with love, but has put up with the late nights and also has provided most of the financial contributions to this research. Open it up to any questions. Yes, doctor.
You mentioned at the beginning that the reported accidents in your study was 150 police reports in 8 months.
Yes, that was a small town in Texas.
Yeah. And what is the economic visibility of this one? Do you see this number is?
It's continually.
What do you mean? You have US state-based statistics to see how much incidents haven't.
It's very slim, but the one social aspect that I did find was that 150. It was a small study done in a town in Texas, in a small town in Texas, that over an 8-month span had 150 cases, and with 50 of those cases being from women, 25 of those being from people.
In order to sell your product, you should do a nationwide study, not just a small.
And I tried. It's very slim. It truly is very slim. You get a lot of police reports, but when it comes down to numbers, there is no one agency that collects all this. So in lieu of wasting, or not correction, wasting, it wouldn't be wasting, but since I have more skills in the technological approach and not the social approach, I'm not a very social person. I'm actually very introverted, but I would more than likely need to find someone to collaborate with me on this to be able to get the social numbers, because it was taking a lot of time while I was making those while I was trying to research that those numbers, and in lieu of that, I after a certain while, I decided to just jump in and make something happen. What the point of this is not necessarily to sell it. If somebody wants to pay me money, I will obviously take it. But the idea is to provide our police departments. The idea is that if I make this open source or of some sort, and a local police department goes to their local university, says, "Make me this robot. I want to use it." So that way, if there is a victim that gets one of these notifications that you saw, they would be able to go there and locate it and put that mischievously placed AirTag into evidence, find out who did it.
Let me rephrase it.
Yes.
For our engineers, our final goal to design products that can be sold. If I design products for 100 people who are going to use it, it's not worth the time invested in this one. Yeah, I see your vision, but at the end, you have to make products to be sold. Okay.
Yes.
You have to think about that when you start a project. Okay.
Yes.
Spend time on it. The other thing, I saw that there is a vibration during the movement. How do you can handle this one?
So there's something called dead zones with servos, and it was a little bit of a lazy approach. But if it has it at if the next angle was within 10 degrees, I had it overshoot and then go back. And then if it was at the ends, I had it go back to the center and then go back to the designated angle. So that way I can mitigate those dead zones. But there are way better solutions to that. But I just decided to do this just so that it's just a dancing. It's not actually scanning anything right now.
Is there any similar product in the market for this one?
No. Okay. Well, similar, like I think 99% of of all inventions have already been created. This is just an amalgamation of all those inventions. So, but no one's has placed a Yagi antenna on a gimbaled robot.
Okay. If you have two AirTags in front of it, what will happen?
So the idea being that that the puck and the barrel both are looking for unpaired AirTags. So if you have a paired AirTag, if your phone is right next to it and your Bluetooth is on and it's your AirTag, it's not going to see it. It's going to see it, but it's being filtered out in the background. That puck, the whole principle of this is that it helps to filter out which MAC addresses you're looking for. So I place this on or near the vehicle. The MAC addresses will then be seen. And since these are omnidirectional antennas, I can just take the one that has the less RSSI value and say that's my target address.
Did you try to most of them and they work it?
Oh yeah, it works. Yes.
Something to add, not all the cases have been reported that was a fraud. Again, people don't report it.
Exactly.
You found it, okay, chose it and call it a day. And especially right now with auto theft, they do have a lot. And you won't be able to find it unless you take it to the dealership to do inspection, or the car is already gone. So that's how they do it with Hellcats and all over the United States. They have been AirTagged and reported. But again, in these reports, they say, oh, retrieved or had been crushed into pieces.
There's a small town south of here, 50 miles south of here, called Zapata, Texas, which has one of the best lakes to fish at, called Falcon Lake. My cousin is a guide on that lake. He's a fishing guide on that lake, and he told me when I told him about this is that they would place AirTags in his boat to find his fishing spots. Now to me that's potatoes. That's nothing to me because that doesn't impact somebody's life. But as I mentioned before, the namesake of my project is after my cousin. I was 1 year old in 1991 when she was taken because her boyfriend didn't want to cut ties. And a lot of this is happening because a significant other wants to be controlling and know exactly where their spouse is without them knowing. I mean, I share my location with my wife and vice versa, but we know. But when you're doing it without their consent, it's a violation of their autonomy, and it will more than likely will lead to physical violence. So that trumps money. I understand your point that it has to be like, as engineers we have to, but this one hits somewhere else. Like The $350 wasn't how much I spent on this project. It was a few thousand, but that's how much that one robot cost after I tallied it up.
Thank you.
Yes.